Have you ever been told to just stay positive, even when your world was absolutely falling apart? Or maybe you felt the pressure to put on a smile and pretend like everything is okay, even when it really is not at all. So that's really the problem with this positivity culture that we now have. And while it's great to be positive and optimistic and take the best view of things, there's also a time and a place for processing, less than ideal emotions and being in that negativity for a while. So in this video, we're going to break down why this good vibes only mindset can actually be toxic in certain ways. And instead, we're going to talk about what genuine, grounded optimism actually looks like. So first, what is toxic positivity? So toxic positivity is this very subtle but very real pressure to always look on the bright side no matter what. So it's like that voice inside of you, and it can be internal or it can be external from a friend or someone that says, don't be so negative, everything happens for a reason, at least it's not worse, these kinds of things. Now, those statements might sound harmless, and in fact, I myself use those statements quite often. So it's not that there's a problem with the statements per se, but what do we do when someone really is going through a difficult time, when someone really is hurting? Because when you're in a really bad place, even if someone says one of those statements to you, again, everything happens for a reason, they're trying to be supportive, but it can feel like emotionally you don't have any space to process what's going on. As though you're just expected to move into positivity and not be in that negative for a while and process everything. So genuine optimism is not about denying reality. We're all going to have things that we have to process, but it's about acknowledging what's real and still believing in the possibility of healing and growth. So again, here I want to add that it's not that there's something wrong with these statements. There's a time and place for them. But, I try to be a positive, optimistic person. I've had challenges in my life, as all of you have. But there's also a time and a place to process that negativity or negative emotions. And, sometimes people are well-intentioned and they're trying to be supportive and say, hey, look on the bright side, everything happens for a reason. But sometimes you have to be in that place for a while to process things and get the gift of whatever lesson that is, and then you can move on. And this is really where things get tricky, because when we're constantly told to just be positive, it sends the message that certain emotions aren't welcome. Grief, anger, confusion, sadness, any of these dark or negative emotions, they get labeled really as problems instead of, part of our experience, things that we have to work through and gain lessons from. So doing this creates a few problems. First, it invalidates what the other person is going through. Second, it can create shame and guilt around anything, other than being in this state of good vibes and positive. And then finally, I feel it actually prevents growth, because we can't heal something if we don't at least admit that it exists and then face it. And in my own life, maybe in yours too, some of my greatest breakthroughs have been immediately after going through a really dark period. I've talked on this channel about a dark night of the soul, or something similar. Some of the greatest breakthroughs and personal development that I've had have come right after a pretty negative period, and having to process some of that and learn the lessons from it and get the gifts from that negativity that came into my life. So really, people who are going through these kinds of negative situations, I think what they really want to hear, and myself included, would be, hey, I totally understand how hard this is. I'm here for you. I'm here if you need help, that kind of thing. So you're still showing that you are supportive and want to be there for that person, but you're also not trying to force this positivity in a situation that is negative. So then the question is, what do we do? How do we process these emotions and these moments? I think the focus really needs to be on, feeling whatever you're going through in order to move through it and heal it. So give yourself permission to feel everything, the good and the bad. And I think we're so used to just focusing on the positive emotions, but there's such a full range of emotions of, what it means to be human. And life can be beautiful and it can be really brutal and depressing at times. And there's no need to pretend that something is the opposite of what it is. In fact, when we're honest with ourselves, I think that's when real optimism can actually emerge. Another thing we can do is, reframe what we're going through. So if someone asks you, how are things going? Instead of just saying, oh, everything's fine, that's like the common answer. Say, hey, this is really hard. I had this happen and this happened. It's really difficult, but I'm learning from it and I'm doing my best. Or, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I don't have all the answers right now, but I trust that I'll find them. So there's a way to reframe these things as challenges that are actually happening for us rather than just to us. The other thing is we can learn to hold space for ourselves and others. So if you find that a friend is really struggling, sometimes people just want someone that will listen. So I find often that that presence, your presence of being with the person and listening, is often more healing than anything else you could do. So real optimism isn't just about faking it, no matter what's going on. It's really something deeper. It's like this grounded belief that things are happening for you so that you can learn and grow and develop, and that real healing is possible. And so you don't always need to fake a smile. Sometimes you're going to be in a bad place, and it's okay to be honest about that. You don't need to suppress the truth of what's going on to always be high vibe. And you just have to meet yourself where you actually are and, allow the lessons to unfold and give yourself time. Give yourself compassion and time to work through whatever you have going on. So now let me ask you this. Have you ever felt sort of silenced by this, positivity culture that you always have to be high vibe and, super positive? Let me know about your experience in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you navigated a similar moment in your own life. And remember, you don't have to be positive all of the time. It's okay to take time for yourself to process whatever's going on, positive or negative. You just have to be real, and you have to be willing to be a little uncomfortable and at times vulnerable and work through whatever's going on. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.